So, where do the courts stand in the process of agency oversight? As might be expected, the judiciary's role is the most detached. Judicial review of agency action primarily involves verifying its accord with the will of the political branches. A court's inquiry typically begins with an examination of the enabling legislation, which defines both the agency's mission and the subjects that courts are allowed to look into. Those subjects may be virtually non existent, a complete snub of the legislature, or can include just about everything. Of course, since judges interpret an agency's enabling act, they ultimately wind up with the last word. Regardless of the extent of their role, courts review some issues more closely than others. For example, judges are likely to defer to an agency's factual determinations, but not to its legal conclusions. They will not question an agency's findings of fact so long as they are reasonable and if some rational basis exists to support them, or if they are not arbitrary or capricious. However, they will feel freer to reevaluate the agency's view of the law and the way it has applied the law to concrete facts, superscript 13, which reads, these distinctions will become clearer in Chapter 4. Back to the text. Full utilization of the many benefits of agency regulation obviously requires broad delegations of power and responsibility to these administrative units. Many feel that such delegations unduly threaten the fundamental distribution of governmental authority set forth in the U.S. Constitution. Our system of checks and balances depends on a true separation of powers, which ensures both governmental accountability and restraint. With all responsibilities fused into one governmental body, even one confined to a limited area of law, the traditional paradigm of separateness disappears. In addition, broad authority usually implies large bureaucracies and their attendant costs. Executive agency jurisdiction may encourage overregulation, a burden both to those directly regulated and to taxpayers generally. When do the benefits of the agency concept outweigh the civic risks? Agencies work best when created in response to urgent pragmatic needs and with a view toward meeting those needs efficiently. It is perhaps wiser to ask in each case whether it is possible to imagine an effective alternative. The administrative process is dynamic and evolving. New governmental exigencies are constantly being recognized and met with an ever expanding array of administrative solutions. Each new innovation calls for review of these same basic issues. Lest the discussion of agency function and oversight appear academic and remote, it is well to emphasize the degree to which administrative agencies can influence our everyday lives. The Environmental Protection Agency, for example, sets the ecological agenda for the entire nation. State environmental agencies augment EPA surveillance at the local level. The Federal Reserve System controls the nation's money supply, a responsibility that touches the lives of countless employees, consumers, business people, and investors all over the world. And investors the world over, even an area as seemingly rarefied as freedom of expression finds its way into the prerogatives of several federal agencies. The U.S. Postal Service issues regulations aimed at restricting the flow of certain materials deemed obscene. The Federal Communications Commission limits the hours during which radio stations can broadcast adult-oriented, you know what that means, programming. And the National Foundation of the Arts and Humanities, which administers both the National Endowment for the Arts and the National Endowment for the Humanities, directly influences the output of the nation's artists through discretionary funding outlays. It may not be sexy, but this stuff can definitely get provocative.